Stashing changes. Welcome to this presentation on stashing changes in Git. Stashing is a very useful feature that allows you to temporarily save your local changes without committing them. This is particularly helpful when you need to switch to a different branch or task, but don't want to lose the work you've already done. When you stash your changes, Git creates a snapshot of your current working directory and the index, which can be restored later. This means you can save your progress, switch to a different branch, and then come back to your stashed changes whenever you're ready. In this presentation, we'll explore the various aspects of stashing, including how to stash your changes, view your stash, and apply the stashed changes back to your working directory. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a solid understanding of how to effectively use the stashing feature in your Git workflow. Let's start by learning how to stash your current changes. To do this, you can use the git stash command. This will save your current changes and revert your working directory to the last committed state. You can also include a message with your stash using the M option. This can be helpful for keeping track of what changes you've stashed, especially if you have multiple stashes. It's important to note that stashing preserves both your staged and unstaged changes. This means that when you stash your changes, Git will save everything you've been working on, regardless of whether it's been staged or not. Using the git stash command is a quick and easy way to temporarily save your progress and switch to a different task or branch without losing your work. Now that you know how to stash your changes, let's talk about how to view your stash. To see a list of all your stashed changes, you can use the git stash list command. This will display all the stashes you've created, with the most recent stash at the top. Each stash is identified by a unique identifier, such as stash@0. This identifier is important, as you'll need it to apply the stash changes later. If you want to see the specific changes that were stashed, you can use the git stash show command, followed by the stash identifier. This will show you the changes that were part of that particular stash. Viewing your stash is a great way to keep track of the changes you've temporarily saved and to ensure that you're applying the right stash when you're ready to restore your work. Now that you know how to view your stashed changes, let's talk about how to apply them back to your working directory. To apply the most recent stash, you can use the git stash apply command. This will take the changes from the most recent stash and apply them to your current working directory. If you want to apply a specific stash, you can use the stash identifier, such as stash@0. After applying a stash, you may want to remove it from your stash list. You can do this using the git stash drop command, followed by the stash identifier. Alternatively, you can apply and drop the stash in a single step using the git stash pop command. This will apply the most recent stash and then remove it from the stash list. Applying stash changes is a great way to restore your progress when you're ready to continue working on a task or branch. It allows you to switch between different tasks or branches without losing your work. In addition to applying stash changes to your current working directory, you can also create a new branch from a stashed change. This can be useful when you want to continue working on a stashed change as a separate branch. To create a new branch from a stashed change, you can use the git stash branch command. This command takes two arguments: the name of the new branch you want to create and the identifier of the stash you want to apply. When you run this command, Git will 1. Create a new branch with the name you specified, 2. Check out the new branch, 3. Apply the changes from the specified stash, 4. Drop the applied stash. This is a convenient way to work on a stash change as a separate branch without having to manually apply the stash and then create a new branch. It's a great way to keep your workflow organized and your changes well structured. Finally, let's discuss how to clear your stash. If you have a lot of stash changes and you want to start fresh, you can use the git stash clear command to remove all the stash changes from your repository. Alternatively, if you only want to remove the most recent stash, you can use the git stash drop command. This will remove the topmost stash from your stash list. If you want to remove a specific stash, you can provide the stash identifier, such as stash at 0, to the git stash drop command. It's important to note that clearing the stash is an irreversible action, so be careful when using these commands. Make sure you've applied or saved any changes you want to keep before clearing the stash. Clearing the stash can be useful when you've finished working on a task and no longer need the stash changes, or when you want to start fresh with a clean stash. In summary, stashing is a powerful feature in Git that allows you to temporarily save your local changes without committing them. This is particularly useful when you need to switch to a different branch or task, but don't want to lose the work you've already done. To stash your changes, you can use the git stash command. This will save your current changes and revert your working directory to the last committed state. You can also include a message with your stash using the -m option. To view your stash changes, use the git stash list command, which will display a list of all your stash changes. You can then apply a specific stash using git stash apply or git stash pop. Another useful feature is the ability to create a new branch from a stash change using the git stash branch command. This allows you to continue working on a stash change as a separate branch. Finally, you can clear your stash using git stash clear or git stash drop, but be careful as this action cannot be undone. Stashing is a great way to manage your workflow and switch between tasks or branches without losing your progress. By mastering this feature, you can become more efficient and productive in your Git-based projects.